EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is 10 cards you should be putting in your Commander decks, episode 12. Starting out this time with Do or Die. 1 and a black sorcery. Separate all creatures target player controls into 2 piles. Destroy all creatures in the pile of that player's choice. They can't be regenerated. This is a really bad board wipe, I suppose, but it's only 2 mana, right? 2 mana, choose a guy, the guy that's doing the best, and separate those cards into 2 piles. You get to separate the piles, right? They get to choose which one they keep, but you're separating. That can be some pretty fantastic value for 2 mana. I separate all your creatures into your commander and then everything else, right? You want to keep your commander or do you want to destroy the rest of your creatures? I separate your piles into your Avenger of Zendikar and all your plant tokens. So you can either have all your plant tokens die and just have a 5/5 creature that doesn't do a whole lot, or you can have your Avenger of Zendikar die and none of your plant tokens will be getting any more counters on them, right? So it actually is a pretty value-y card. I know you're ultimately putting the decision in the hands of your opponents, but it's a lot of value for 2 mana, I think. Next up, Drafna's Restoration. And before any of you guys freak out, yes, this is an old card. It is on the reserve list, but it is not expensive at all, right? As I've pointed out in a previous video, just because a card is old and on the reserve list doesn't mean it's expensive. This card's only about $1. So 1 blue mana sorcery. Put any number of target artifact cards from target player's graveyard on top of their library in any order. So you look at this card and you're like, okay, well, I want to play it in an artifact deck because, of course, if I lose a particular artifact that I really want, put it on top of my library, I suppose maybe in like a Joyra deck, it can be extra good because I'll put a whole bunch of artifacts on top of my library, and as I'm casting them, I'm drawing them and continuing the process. So it seems like a pretty great fit there. But I think the funny way to use this card is on your opponents. You can really hose an opponent with a card like this, right? I cast a Bane of Progress or a Vandal Blast or some effect that just destroys all the artifacts, or maybe one of your other opponents has done that. Now I'm going to pay 1 blue mana and take all those mana rocks and whatever else and stack them on top of your library. And of course, you get to choose the order. And so now for the next however many turns, that person is just drawing mana rocks. That seems pretty good, doesn't it? Even better maybe is in a mill strategy. That's a really funny spot for a card like this. I'm playing one of those blue-black milling decks, or maybe even a mono-blue milling deck. Obviously, I've milled a ton of cards into my opponent's library, and whoever that one guy is who's got a lot of artifacts in their library, again, I just picked the 5 or 6 mana rocks in their graveyard, stack them on top of their library, and that's all they're going to be drawn for a while. That actually seems like a pretty good play in a milling strategy. All right, next up, Dragon Appeasement. Really powerful effect here. 3 black, red, green enchantment. Skip your draw step. That's not great. However, whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may draw a card. Oh boy, obviously you got to be careful whenever you have cards like this in play. If all your creatures get removed for whatever reason, then you're going to be kind of in a tough spot. I think it's worth it. Again, later in the game, I'm ready to just sort of go off, do my thing. I'm in that sacrifice theme. I got lots of creatures in play. Every time I sacrifice one, I get to draw a card. Obviously, Jund Colors is pretty fantastic for that. I think this is extra good in a sacrifice permanent theme. So if you have ways to sacrifice stuff other than just creatures, you can sacrifice permanents or enchantments or whatever. That way, if you get stuck, you can also sacrifice this thing as well. It's a really powerful effect. It doesn't see much play in the Commander format. Dragon Throne of Tarkir coming in at number 4. 4 mana legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature has defender and pay 2. Tap other creatures you control, gain trample and get +X in a turn, where X is this creature's power, and equip 3. I actually can't believe how much this isn't played. This is essentially a almost Craterhoof Behemoth effect in colorless form, right? It is a card that really can end games, and I'm surprised it doesn't see more play. You're going to put this, I guess you could put it on your biggest creature, because then you're going to get the biggest overrun effect from this ability. But, you know, I like this on, in particular, a commander that I just don't plan on ever attacking with. It's got a decent power and toughness. I mean, just think about it, guys. Overrun is +3/+3 in trample. So that means your commander only has to be a 3/3. I put this on my commander. I tap it. My whole team gets an overrun effect. That seems pretty good, right? Do it again the next turn. Do it again the next turn. This is a repeatable overrun effect that I'm going to stick on my commander because I don't ever plan on attacking with it anyway. And of course, the bigger your commander gets, the better it gets. I mean, heck, even in like a Talron deck, my commander's only a 2/2, okay, but just put this on my commander, which I never plan on attacking with, and I can just give my whole team of Drakes +2/+2 and trample every turn. Now they're all 4/4s. That seems totally worth it to me. I actually can't believe this card doesn't see more play. Let's talk about Dragon Wings. 1 and a blue, enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has flying, cycling, 1 and a blue, and of course that means you can discard it and then draw a card. Whenever a creature with mana value 6 or greater enters, you may return Dragon Wings from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to that creature. So this card's not splashy. It's not like gonna end games like Dragon Throne does, but it is a card that, in my opinion, can so easily slot into any deck that has a commander that fits this mana value, right? Mana value 6 or greater. If you're in a deck where you have a blue commander that is 6 mana value or greater and isn't already flying, this is such an easy slot in, right? Early in the game, I just cycle this bad boy, throw it in my graveyard, draw a card, and then whenever I cast my commander, which of course, because it's mana value 6 or greater, is going to be likely later in the game, and that Dragon Wings is going to pop out of my graveyard and slide right onto my commander. That just seems like such a great way to give your commander flying if you want it to have evasion. And of course, if my commander leaves the battlefield, this goes to the graveyard, and then when it comes back, the Dragon Wing comes back as well, right? So really there is no downside at all here. It's just almost a free way to be giving your commander flying if it is that mana value. Dubious Challenge is a really funny card that I think actually could see more play in the commander format. So 3 and a green sorcery. Look at the top 10 cards of your library. Exile up to 2 creature cards from among them, then shuffle. Target opponent may choose one of the exiled cards and put that onto the battlefield under their control. Put the rest onto the battlefield under your control. So there's a lot of funny ways to use this card. I think you could just play this card as it's intended. Again, in the commander format, 4 mana, I get to cheat a creature into plays pretty good, and obviously your opponent having the choice means you're going to have to do some wheeling and dealing with them. No problem. We love that kind of stuff in the commander format, right? If you're one of those guys that loves the politics, loves the wheeling and dealing, you just throw this in your deck just because you want to see how it's going to play out. You're just wheeling and dealing. Maybe you want to give your opponents a good creature. And in fact, in a go deck, that's definitely a decent strategy, right? You want your opponents to have creatures so they can be attacking with them. So in a go deck in green, this is a great fit. In a deck where you just want your opponents to have creatures in play because you want your opponent's creatures to be dying or whatever, stuff like that. Also a pretty decent fit as well. Really funny play here is I got some way to regain control of my creatures, right? And in fact, I made a deck a while back where I was building around Stark of Wrath and Humble Defector because those two have very similar abilities where really great effect, but of course then I got to donate them, and that's okay. I have a Homeward Path in play and I will just immediately get them back. Dubious Challenge is a fantastic fit in that deck. If anyone ran out there and put that deck together, throw Dubious Challenge in there because of obviously the creature your opponent is getting, you'll just tap your Homeward Path and immediately get it back. So now you're getting 2 creatures into play for 4 mana. Just a really neat card, really unique. Give it a try in one of your decks, see how you like it. Speaking of unique cards, Dwarven Armory, 2 red enchantment, and check out this incredibly unique ability. Pay 2 and sacrifice a land. That's right, you're sacking lands. Keep that in mind for your Boros land sacrifice theme. I know there's a lot of people out there that have decks like that. Put a +2/+2 counter on target creature. That's right. Very rare situation of putting a +2/+2 counter on target creature. There's only a couple of cards in the history of the game that are doing that. And you only activate during an upkeep step. Very weird wording here. So of course you can activate this during anyone's upkeep step. You can do it on yours or any other player. And in the commander format, of course, there are going to be multiple upkeep steps where you can be using this. I don't see that as too much of a drawback. You can obviously activate it a bunch of times on an upkeep, right? So on your upkeep, you can activate this like 5 times if you want to and make one of your creatures +10/+10. So it is a pretty decent effect. It is +2/+2 counters, pretty good in exchange for a land, in my opinion. Again, if you're already sacrificing lands, not really much of a drawback here. So might want to give it consideration for a deck like that. Keeping on with the incredibly unique and then also really powerful abilities, Dreamhuls. Buckle up if you've never seen this card before. 3 blue enchantment. Rather than pay the mana cost for a spell, its controller may discard a card that shares a color with that spell. Wow, what an incredibly powerful ability. And of course, works for everybody, right? Your opponents can do this as well. But as always, we're going to be using this to our advantage. There are certain certainly a lot of ways to give yourself more of an advantage. I will just point out this is actually discarding, so does it fit better in a discarding theme where you're doing that anyway? Maybe it's just a way for you just to cheat stuff into play. I discard my Pongify to cast my Omniscience for free. Seems pretty good, right? This is one of those cards that, funny enough, it is such an incredibly powerful effect, but yet it sees not a lot of play at all in the Commander format. I guess people are probably worried about what their opponents might be doing. A really funny way to play this card, though, is in a Huggy theme where you're sort of luring people, you're enticing people to play their stuff. That can be a great strategy in a Hug theme where I get everyone to just empty their hand, because obviously they're going to be discarding and they're also going to be casting stuff. So people are going to empty their hands extra fast when a Dreamhul's in play, right? So keep that in mind. That is another interesting way to use a card like this. Next up, Dreams of the Dead. 3 and a blue enchantment. Pay 1 and a blue. Return target white or black creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains cumulative upkeep 2. If the creature would leave the battlefield, exile instead of putting it anywhere else. This is essentially kind of unearth on a blue enchantment, which is kind of funny. It's also really funny. I mean, this card's so unique in so many ways. First of all, you have this activated ability on an enchantment, which you don't see very often. It's doing a cumulative upkeep. It's also doing white and black creatures, despite the fact that it's a blue card. So obviously, probably the best fit for this card is in an Esper deck, right? Because, of course, you got to have blue, but then you're also going to have the white and the black creatures. Pretty great fit there, because you're going to likely be able to hit most of your creatures with this. 2 mana repeatable reanimate is fantastic. Of course, you got to pay the cumulative upkeep. If you have a Solemnity in play, hey, we're assembling a combo now. That seems pretty good. But I think for me, the best fit for this is in any deck, obviously in the appropriate colors, that is in a blinking theme. That's right. A blinking deck is the best fit for this card. Why? Because all of your creatures are probably going to have great ETBs, and I can just pay 2 mana, get them back into play, get whatever that fantastic ETB is, and then on my upkeep, I just let them go away. I don't need them anymore. I won't pay the upkeep. I'll just let them get exiled. So this is just a great way to reuse all your creatures in your graveyard to get their ETB effects again, whether you are in an Esper or maybe even just in a white-blue blinking theme. Certainly a powerful effect and a unique one as well. I'm going to end off today with Druids Repository, which is kind of funny. This used to be a really popular card in the format. I used to see it all the time, and I never see it anymore. That's why I'm giving it a mention. 1 green enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, put a charge counter on Druids Repository. So we're in a green deck, and we want to be attacking a lot. Okay, that's actually quite a few decks, I would imagine, in the format. Remove a charge counter from Druids Repository, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So we're putting counters on this, and then we're removing the counters to add mana. When I've seen this in play, it's always doing tons of work. I attack with 3 creatures. Then on my second main phase, I can just remove those 3 counters to add mana and to cast a bunch of stuff. Just really, really great mana acceleration. Not that green really needs it, and maybe that's one of the reasons why this has fallen off in popularity, because, oh, well, green's got lots of mana doublers and lots of other ways to ramp and create lots of mana, so maybe this has fallen out of favor for that reason. But if you're in a green deck where you're just attacking a lot anyway, this is free mana. It is literally free mana whenever I attack with my creatures, so why not throw it in there, right? If your commander is green and it says something about attacking on it, likely you might want to give Druids Repository consideration for your deck. That is it. That is all. 10 more cards that I think should see more play in the commander format. You guys let me know if you're playing any of these cards already. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.